Welcome to the Strong Enough podcast, where we talk about the challenges and celebrate the triumphs of people from all walks of life. I'm your host, Claudia.
And I'm your co-host, Jen.
Today, we have an absolutely amazing guest. She went through traumatic injury where she was basically paralyzed, and instead of giving up, she took the opportunity to truly look inward and discover who she really is. And now she's on a quest to help other people find themselves and find their happiness. Please welcome Amy Thurman. Amy, how are you today?
Hi, Claudia. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really great. I just want to introduce myself. I am a keynote speaker, a best-selling author. I am an educator, a consultant, and I am an authenticity and holding space expert. And all of that came about because I have lived 10 years with a broken neck that went undiagnosed for 6 months. It was such a miserable existence. I almost swallowed a handful of pills because I felt like such a burden to my family. I went from one day working for a major university to the very next day I couldn't take myself to the restroom. But something said to my heart, what if you don't have to die? What if you can make a different choice? What if you can take the same energy you're using trying to die and you can flip it around and use it to fight to live? Maybe you can get better. And if you can get better, maybe you can use your experience to help others. So I began to fight to live with the intention of using my story to help others. And that's what it's become. It's taken on a life of its own. And I feel like I'm just along for the ride at this point.
I love that. I love that you're along for the ride because that shows somebody that is truly in it for the right reasons. You know, you are truly here to help others. What I want to know, though, you know, when you talked about that wanting to swallow the pills, but then being able to quickly shift that focus, what was that like, though, in the moments before that shift when you thought you had no other choice?
Yeah, it was not fun. I had a job that gave me my sense of self-worth. And I think as women, that's what we do. We are taught that our sense of self-worth and our validation comes from outside ourselves. And so that's where the point that I was at. And I could literally was incapacitated for almost a year, 23 hours a day, flat in bed, couldn't walk, talk, hear, or see correctly. And it was just miserable. It was like torture for me because I literally couldn't do anything for myself. My family had to do everything for me, and I felt like such a burden. And so that's where I was. I felt like I was worthless, like I had no sense of self-worth because I got all of my sense of self-worth from external factors. I have learned otherwise now, but that's where I was at that point, just feeling completely worthless.
I don't want to dwell on the trauma, but I do want to hear a little bit about it. What happened that, you know, you had that 10 years of problems and the 6 months with not being diagnosed with your neck injury? What happened to cause that?
Sure. I got up during the night because I didn't feel well, and I passed out and landed on my face on the hardwood floor. And the impact from that fall caused a traumatic brain injury. It actually sheared my brainstem and it broke my neck. But the doctors didn't figure it out for 6 months because the head pain was so severe. I couldn't lift my head off the bed without it just throbbing. And so they were looking at my head. They kept scanning my brain, looking for brain bleeds, looking for all of these things. And it was my fourth neurologist who said, has anyone ever looked at your neck? And I said, no, why? He said, I think you have a neck injury. Let's scan it. And there it was. But the piece of this I want to make sure people understand is that it was my fourth neurologist that I kept advocating for myself, and the doctors weren't figuring it out. So I just kept going to different neurologists. Each of them played a role in helping me, but it was my fourth one who said, oh, I think it's your neck.
I like the fact that you touched on that because I can tell you I'm going through a similar experience right now with a chronic disease of mine, Crohn's, and kind of the same thing, like led me to like my doctors and my diagnosis. But then I've just realized that my medical team is just not helping me anymore. And I had to advocate for myself, fire one of the most well-renowned medical teams in the country, and
Yeah.
find another doctor who kind of is outside the box. So 100%, I think, is you always have to advocate for yourself, whether it's chronic pain, chronic illness, because you know your body. You know if it's
Yeah.
in sync, in balance, any of that stuff. So kudos to you for recognizing that and being like, no, I'm going to keep going until I get an answer that is right for you.
Well, thank you. I will also add that it took 6 years for them to figure out that I have POTS or dysautonomia, which is what caused me to pass out in the first place.
Wow.
So that was a journey that that was my mission, to find a doctor to run a specific test to
Right.
get this diagnosis. So yeah, it is, there's so much advocating for yourself, and you're so right. We know our bodies better than anyone else, and we have to just keep pushing and trying and putting it out there until we find someone who's willing to listen.
Great. I know Claudia's dealt with the same as well with her journeys with her back injuries and her, bladder disease that she has as well. So
Yeah, and what I'm wondering, did you ever feel like you were being kind of pushed aside because you're a woman? And, oh, she's overreacting, she's fine. Did that ever come to mind, or did it just feel like they just weren't hearing you? Didn't matter who you were?
I think it was just they just weren't hearing me. The only time I really felt pushed aside or ignored or even gaslighted was when I was trying to get disability, because I lost my job. I was completely incapacitated. I was in a wheelchair. I had to relearn to walk, all of these things because my brainstem was sheared, like it was not connected.
Right.
And I had to go to this brain center for them to literally reconnect my brainstem, which is a whole different story. It's a wild experience. But I was trying and trying for years to get disability because I simply couldn't drive or anything. There's no way I could work. And they kept saying, no, it's not showing. There's no medical record showing that you have this or that. There were certain specific indicators that they were looking for that I didn't have, didn't fall under that category, so they would not accept me. And I finally had to get an attorney. It was hiring an attorney that got it, but it was, gosh, 3 years. Actually, it took 4 years of pushing through that. So I did feel overlooked, but I don't know that it was because I was female. I think it's just part of the way the system is, unfortunately, in our Western culture.
I agree.
disability for sure.
Yeah, our disability system is broken. I
Yeah.
100% agree with you, because the common saying is, well, you're going to get denied at least once. Like, go ahead and expect that. And like, why should we be in a place where we accept that? Anyway, let's move on from
Yeah.
the negative. Like, let's hop on the train now of moving forward, because we're looking at you. For those who aren't watching but are listening, they're hearing you, and you're in a totally different space now. So, will you talk about how you got to this place of saying, nope, I'm worth it, I'm worthy, I want to live, and I'm going to not just live, but I'm going to thrive and help others?
Yes, yes, of course. I love sharing this part of my journey because I feel like I am a permission slip to help other people do what I have done, to go from living in the trenches to now living such a great life. And it really was knowing that I was spared for a reason. So many doctors throughout my journey told me at the point, I was a rolling miracle that I was
Right.
even alive. That it was a miracle that I survived that, because had it severed my brainstem, obviously I would have died right there on the spot. My 4-year-old would have found me as he got up in the morning. It would have been horrible. But I just knew that that I survived this for a reason. And when that said to my heart, you can use your story to help others. As a former educator and social worker, I'm a heart-centered person. I'm all about helping people. That's why I exist. I have always been that way. And I know that I can this experience is meant to help other people. And it's interesting that fame and notoriety have never motivated me. I have not ever been one to do things to get fame and notoriety. Yet that is what this story has become, and that's a
Mhm.
whole different section of this story. But I just, like I said, began fighting to live with the intention of using my story to help others. And I really didn't do it, like I said, for fame and notoriety,
Mhm.
but to go to that brain center for 2 weeks, it was the insurance didn't cover it because their techniques were so out of the box, which was
Mhm.
mind blowing to me, but they were very effective. So I did a GoFundMe and asked my friends and family to support me, and they ended up covering the entire 2 week stay. So
Wow.
as a result of that, I felt like I needed to show them what their money was going toward. I needed to
Right.
document
Mhm.
what was happening. Like, this is what you paid for, this is what you're helping me with.
Mhm.
So I began documenting my journey just to show those people, this is what you're helping me do, thanking them for that. And that became something I'd never expected. People kept saying, "You're so inspiring. You need to write a book about this." And I was like, I'm fighting my way, I'm clawing my way out of hell right now. I don't want to document this, you know.
Mhm.
But they kept telling me how inspiring I was. And so I listened and decided to write a book about it, about my journey. And it became a bestseller and literally took on a life of its own. And that's a whole different journey, but it literally has led me to rubbing shoulders with celebrities, being on a Times Square billboard, being invited to speak internationally, all of these things that I didn't intend when
Mhm.
I started using my story to help others. I just wanted to help people know that there was more to life, that they could do what I had done, that they could fight adversity and they could overcome it. And I didn't know that it was going to take on all of these other things. And I feel grateful for that, but that has been a challenge as well.
Mhm.
Not being, I really didn't have the capacity to hold that level of success. I didn't have the capacity to receive it at the time.
Mhm.
And that led to a whole nother mental health journey
Mhm.
that I have talked about openly on my socials. And so I forgot what the question was now. I'm so sorry. I was just like carrying on there.
No.
So
You're doing great. You're
Oh,
doing great.
fantastic.
And I love what you just said. It's so interesting because Jen and I have been having a conversation today about fame and about whether people who are seeking fame versus people who are seeking to help others with their message, with their story, with themselves, and how that is a two different things. So I find it very interesting, and telling that you
yeah,
mentioned that. I want to hear now, though, a little bit about that mental health challenge because we want to hear about it so we can hear how you have conquered that.
of course. As my book took off and I began having all these opportunities and again sharing them on my socials so people would
Mm-hmm.
know they can do these things too, people began to refer to me as a celebrity. They were inviting me to be a celebrity guest co-host on their shows, that kind of stuff. And that really sent me like, I don't want to be a celebrity. It really, really hit me like I felt like I needed to get the message out that I'm not doing this to be considered a celebrity. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
that persona. That's not who I am. Yet
Right.
people kept
Mm-hmm.
calling me that. And it really, really messed with my brain because I felt like I don't want people to see me that way. I want people to see Amy, the person, not the face on the Times Square billboard, not the person rubbing elbows with celebrities. And it really did a number on me. And so I went into this deep dark place. I didn't know how to handle that. Like I said, I didn't have the capacity to receive that.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally just began sitting in my floor, in my bedroom floor, staring at the wall. I stopped bathing. I stopped taking care of myself. I stopped eating. And this is emotional for me. I appreciate your understanding if I become emotional.
Absolutely.
But I just began sitting there. I wasn't taking care of myself at all. I wasn't changing clothes because I didn't know what to do. I thought that
Mm-hmm.
what I was doing was a good thing, that I was putting all of this out there, yet it went a direction I wasn't expecting. And so I walked myself into a mental health hospital and I asked for professional help. And here I was, this person who had written this book about resilience and overcoming
Mhm.
adversity and being strong. And I had fought my way through living 10 years with a broken neck, using society's version of strength. Yet
Mm,
here I was quietly falling apart behind the scenes, thinking, I'm not strong. I'm not resilient. What are people going to think? This is going to ruin my career if people know that I'm falling apart over here. So I did it quietly for a while. And then I walked myself into that mental health facility and asked for professional help. And they kept me for a week because I was in such bad shape. I wasn't
Mhm.
suicidal. I just was not functioning.
Right.
And what I found was the exact opposite happened. That I knew when I came out of that mental health hospital that I had to talk about this. That if I was going to share, my tagline is authentically Amy. If I'm going to be authentic and
Mhm.
share all of these other things that are so good in my life, I've also got to talk about the times that are challenging and the times that are hard, because I don't ever want people to think that I feel like I have it all together, because I
Mhm.
don't. So I began sharing this mental health journey, and people started responding like I have never, ever experienced. Men, this is what surprised me the most. Men started sending me private messages saying, I'm dealing with that. I'm falling
Mhm.
apart, but I can't talk about it because I don't want people to know. And they
Mhm.
kept telling me, keep talking about it. Keep sharing this because you're helping so many more people than you even know. And so I realized that in that week in the mental health hospital, that what saved me wasn't medication and it
Mhm.
wasn't therapy. It was something far more human. It was people holding space for me. It's what I call holding space. It's a
Mhm.
safe place for people to fall apart without judgment. And so I realized that, you know what? I've been holding space for people for decades. I've been doing this for people for decades, but it's my turn now. It's time for someone to hold space for me. And it's
Mhm.
time for me to learn to hold space for myself. And so I really had to think back, like, what is it I do? What is this technique I use to hold space for people? And so I just created the holding space method and am sharing that and doing consulting with businesses, communities, schools, any place that people gather, to allow people a safe place to fall apart without being judged. And it's like wild. It's crazy how well this is going and how people are responding to this, because it's so needed. Our
Mhm.
humanity needs this piece of presence right now.
So there's two things I want to touch on real quick with you. The one thing that you were talking about, the success, and that you weren't in a place to handle that. And I talk about this all the time with me and my husband and our businesses and our entrepreneurship. And it's that mindset. Like there's so many people, and it's, yes, I use it with wealth because we usually try to our society equates wealth and success, which it's not. But
Right.
again, we tend to do that. But
Mhm.
you have to be in a mentally in a place, physically in a place to be able to handle that type of success, to handle that type of wealth. Or,
Yes.
like you said, if something like what happened with you see it all the time with, I always use the analogy with people that win the lottery. It's like
Mm.
you get all of this sudden success or sudden wealth, but you don't have the mindset, you don't have any of the work to like support that and handle that.
Mhm.
So the fact that you recognize that, I think, is amazing. And I feel like that's one thing that we really do need to talk more about in a success space is your
Right.
mental capacity. You've got to prepare mentally in order to handle and receive that success, that wealth, the fruit of your labors. So amazing that you touched on that. Claudia, you have something? I feel like you.
Um, yeah, I completely agree with you. And what I wanted to touch on as well was the social media piece of it,
Yep.
because we are constantly putting our best face forward on social media, and everybody says like that's people's highlight reels, and it is. So what was it like for you to say, you know what? I'm gonna bear it all, on this place where everybody else is showing their best and brightest and the photoshopping and the filtering and the this, that, and the other. I'm gonna be real. Was that scary?
Oh, it was very scary because not only did it affect me, it affected my family. So I had to understand that
Mm-hmm.
I'm also representing, like, this is reflecting my family as well. And so I had to think about, how is this going to affect them? My son is in high school. My older kids are adults now.
Mm-hmm.
And it really was something that I had to weigh, but the pull, the drive to be authentic and to show that realness with these people who were supporting me was just, again, it was like me becoming a permission slip to allow other people to show the realness and to just be who they are and not pretend, not to hide behind the masks anymore.
I think that's great. I mean, I love the fact that you also wrestled with this. And,
Mm-hmm.
again, Claudia and I are kind of similar, like in our journeys, like we've been very real and honest about, our past, our journeys, our trauma, our healing process. Um, and I think that's important because it's relatable. Like when somebody's in the middle of something and they're in the trenches, as like what you said, I say the valleys, I'm a faith believer, so we say mountains and valleys. But like really truly going through that and being in the valley and knowing that somebody went through it, not that like I'm happy you went through it by any means, but the fact that I can relate to somebody, like when I'm in my pain, when I'm in my, really bad mental place, and there's someone who, hey, you know what, this sucks, I went through this, but guess what, I came out on the other side of it. Like that's what I feel like you're talking about, being that permission slip and being that light to people, who are going through similar situations, to know that they're not alone. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing when you're going through massive tragedy, hardships, difficulties. You just want to know that you're not alone, and that
Mm-hmm.
people care. Someone cares. Someone's been through this. And like, you know what, bro? Like, I get it and it sucks. But you know what? I made it through. So therefore, I'm not anything special. You can too. And I love the fact that
Mm-hmm.
you are in that space. And to me, like you're talking about the celebrity and the success. Well, to me, that's sowing and reaping. Like it shows your heart that you just want to help people. And guess
Mm-hmm.
what God does? God blesses people who truly have a true heart that just want to help. And
Mm-hmm.
that has been, in my opinion, I think that has been your blessing as well, because you're blessing other people and therefore
Mm-hmm.
you're being blessed as well.
I feel that so deeply, like that it's because my heart is pure and that I
Mm-hmm.
just simply want to help others, that all this stuff is coming to me that I
Mm-hmm.
didn't intend on doing. But I will say that as far as the social media sharing, that there is a line there, because we want to make sure that we're sharing from the scar and
Yes.
not the wound,
Ooh,
because
yeah.
when we're sharing from
Yes.
that oozing wound, then it
Mm-hmm.
becomes too much. But when we share from the scar, where it's healed
Mm-hmm.
a little bit, we've learned a lot of things, or some things that we can help use to help other people. I think that's different.
Dude, I love that. I think that's great.
Yes. I
Yeah.
wrote that down. I love it
Yeah.
too. Yes. Talk a little bit about your methods. So you talked about holding space, and then I think we also have, and it's sitting behind you, polishing the mirror. Will you share a little bit about that and how you came to that?
Sure, that, when I was completely incapacitated for that year, laying in bed, missed that entire year of my kids' lives. I already said my little guy was 4. My
Mm-hmm.
daughter was a senior in high school. My older son was a freshman in high school. So those were times they needed their mama, but I wasn't there for them. I laid in that bed and I literally could not do anything that I could do before the accident. I was trying so badly to get back to the person I was before. I didn't even like that version of myself, but it was what I knew. And so I was trying to
Mm-hmm.
get back to her, but I couldn't. And I knew that I couldn't. And so I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I was just focused on what I couldn't do. And so
Mhm.
my husband said to me,
Mm-hmm.
why don't you try focusing on something that you can do? Find something you can do and focus on that instead. And
Mm-hmm.
the only thing I knew that I could do was to put earbuds in my ears, turn it down really low so my brain could handle it, and have him play something motivational and inspirational for me. So I began listening to Tony Robbins and Dr. Wayne Dyer, and I came across the wisdom of Rumi, and a
Mm.
poem that changed my life, and is also why I called my business Polish the Mirror, that goes like this: Ye who seek God apart, that which you seek thou art. If you wish to seek the beloved's face, polish the mirror and gaze into that space. And so it told me that I'm looking in the wrong place for validation. I'm looking in the wrong place for my sense of self-worth. I was looking outside myself, that I need to polish that mirror and look within. I need to go within and find out what jewels and what good stuff is inside of me so that I don't have to look outside myself.
Mhm.
And so that I began to polish the mirror and learn more about myself. And I began to learn how to remove the things that were not me, the things that I was taught to become, the things that I was taught to believe, remove all of those things to really expose who I really was underneath it and allow that part of me to shine. And so
Mhm.
the Polish the Mirror framework is built from that experience of me learning how to do that for myself. And it's basically just you start with self-discovery. We know more about other people than we know about ourselves. And we have to change that. We can't learn to be the authentic version of ourselves unless we know who we are at our core. So self discovery, then it moves to self value. Once we learn who we are at our core, that self discovery piece, then we know what's there to value. We know what's there to love about us. And then once we know that, we move into self alignment. So once we know what's there to value, then we can align ourselves with that version so that we can live on that path and go in that direction that we're supposed to be on, that aligned version of ourselves. So those are the three pieces that I learned how to do while
Mhm.
laying flat in that bed so that I could find my hero within, which is the name of my book, instead of looking outside myself. So that's the Polish the Mirror framework.
As you were discovering new things about yourself, so you're looking within and you're getting to know you, maybe for the first time,
Yes.
what's the most surprising thing that you learned about yourself?
Oh, well, the most surprising probably is that my identity and my self-worth didn't come from how much I could accomplish. That I had been taught, like society teaches us that. And so
Mhm.
the well-meaning adults in our lives just jump on that bandwagon because that's all they know.
Right.
So I had to learn that I am not what I can do. I now find my sense of self-worth in who I am
Mhm.
and my who I am at my core and who I am authentically. And once I figure out who that is and share that version of myself, literally people are just I don't even know how to explain it. It's not something I set out to do, but just when we become our authentic selves, it draws people to us because there are
Mhm.
so few people in this world who are authentically them, that we are so looking for and craving real, that it really, really does draw people in. And I've been blessed and grateful that it has done that. And it's just something that I figured out on a whim because I knew that I was supposed to be more authentic.
I love that, and I wish more people could do that. I think we would all be served so well to be more authentic and to be more authentic in those spaces where we know other people are seeing us. Because it does make it easier to keep that mask on when we're wearing it for so much time. So much of our life we've got that mask of I've got it all together, I'm successful, I'm healthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wise, I have so many friends. um, and the more you do that and say that, it gets harder and harder to peel that mask away. I feel like, do you sense that as well?
Oh, absolutely. I realize that it's just coming from a place of fear. Like we are
Hmm.
not authentic. We're putting on these masks and we're pretending to be someone we're not because of fear. We're afraid of what people will think of the real us and if they're going to like us. It's like a middle school. It's like we still live in middle
Yes.
school, you know?
Or
Like you go,
or we're so scared of who we actually are. Maybe we don't know who we
Hmm.
are. We're so scared of that or the potential of
Right.
it too, you know? I know people that deal with so much anger and unforgiveness that has become their identity. And they wouldn't know who they were without the anger. And like that's sad, but that has become people's identity. And so I can totally understand and see where you're coming from on that, and that it's we really do need to get down to truth. And, it's all about, what do I say all the time, Claudia? Like, self-reflection.
So much self-reflection, polishing the mirror.
People and that's the
Really
biggest thing is that
looking.
people do not like to sit and have hard conversations with God about, hey, we're so quick to pray for somebody else who wronged us or who's doing something, incorrectly, instead of also being like, all right, God, where did I screw up? Or where do I need to fix myself? Where am I lacking? Because none of us are perfect. Like, we're not going to be perfect until we meet him on that side of it. But yeah, I think that's one thing as a mature adult. Self-reflection has to be part of your mental health, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
situation, your protocol, procedure.
Yeah, it is so true. I now learn how to live and love. Like, I don't want to just show love. I want to be love. Like, I want to beam love. And that's who I am now. But I didn't get there overnight. I had to do that self-reflection. I had to do that self-discovery. I had to do the self-love. I had to go through all of these things that were not easy. Like, we bury emotions. We bury all this stuff down because we don't ever want it to surface again, but we're not ever going to get to where we want to be unless we allow that stuff to surface. It serves a purpose. It's there for a reason. We have to allow it to serve its purpose, as painful as it is, to get to where we want to be in life and live the life that we want to live.
Agreed.
Tell us what's next. So I think Polish the Mirror is growing, correct? And there's going to be more from you along those lines. So will you talk a little bit about that and what people can expect from Amy moving forward?
Sure. I have a couple of books out. Both of them are bestsellers. The first one, Finding My Hero Within, is my journey of fighting my way through the medical and disability systems to reclaim my life. In that book, I shared a little bit of the Polish the Mirror framework, just pieces of what I learned. And readers overwhelmingly said, we love this book. Some of them said it even saved their lives. They said, we love what you did. Now we want you to teach us how to do it. Teach us how to follow this Polish the Mirror framework that you created. So my second book is a reflective coloring workbook that walks you through the self-discovery process. And it's the first in the Polish the Mirror books. So that's the first one. There are 3 others coming, but I'm also working on another book. I tell you, once you start writing, it's like it just keeps going. You just have so much that you got to get out there,
Right.
So tell me that, because I am literally in the process of writing my first book. So yes.
Everyone needs to write a book. I found so much healing through writing my books that I didn't find anywhere else. And I've been through lots of therapy, let me tell you. But the book I'm working on right now is called How to Fall Apart Without Losing Yourself.
Awesome.
And it's about my holding space method of holding space, how important it is to hold space for yourself and to hold space for others. So that's what I'm putting out there now. I'm doing a keynote about it in October here locally. Nice. I'm going to be speaking at Oxford University in the UK in October also. So lots of cool, exciting things coming up. I'm just really, really grateful.
That's awesome.
I love that. So in addition to writing, there is something else that people do, and they say, like, you can't stop at one. So just like you said, once you start writing, you keep going. A lot of people say that about tattoos. They say you can't just get one tattoo. You'll get the one, and then it starts the process. Now, I know that you don't have any tattoos. But somebody in your family might have some tattoos. What would you say in your daughter's story? Does she have a favorite tattoo, or do you have a favorite story about her tattoos?
Oh, my both of my older kids have tattoos. My daughter is more about the story behind the tattoos. My son just gets them because he likes the way they look, and they do have a message. But it's interesting. My daughter, she works in retail. And she would say, people would ask her about these tattoos, and she would almost get offended because she said the stories are so personal to her that sometimes she didn't want to share the stories because they are so personal. And I didn't understand that for a long time. But the more she got, the more I understood that it's a personal thing. It really is something you're displaying on your body is a really, really deeply personal thing. And so that really hit me, that, and so it made me think now when I see people with tattoos, I always say, do you mind if I ask about your tattoo? I always preface it with that first because some of them may be deeply, deeply personal to the people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's ever a chance that we could see like a mother-daughter tattoo happening?
I don't know. I have never really thought about getting one. It's just not one of those things that I'm just so set on doing.
Right.
But yeah, I think it would depend. It would depend on what it is and what the purpose is and the reason behind it. But I would probably be open to something like that.
See
All right,
what I didn't hear there, I didn't hear a no. So I
right.
like
So
that.
somebody go slide in her daughter's DMs and go ahead and start working on that real quick, like right now.
Right.
Before she gets cold feet and backs out.
Start the
Right.
convincing. Amy, where can people find you? So if they want to start picking up your books, if they want to follow your journey, your speaking engagements, or if they want to provide the idea for that first mother-daughter tattoo, where can they find you?
My website is a one-stop shop. It's got links to my socials. It has links to be a guest on my podcast. On the press page, there are all kinds of different interviews I've done. There's a freebie page. The free page has some resources there, but it's www.getamyshelp.com, GETAMYSHELP, getamyshelp.com.
Awesome. Amy, you have been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, not just for sharing your story with us today, but for sharing your life with so many people purely in the hopes of helping others. That is admirable. And I'm so grateful that you chose to spend some time with us today and share that with us. So thank you.
So kind. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity to just put that out there, share more about my story, and hopefully encourage more people. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Strong Enough podcast. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform by searching Strong Enough. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Strong Enough Pod. If you have suggestions for an upcoming episode or a future guest, please reach out at strongenoughpod@gmail.com. Remember, you are worth it.